Welcome everyone to Daybreak Stories, a sub-series of Daybreak dedicated to telling what happens behind the scenes of the talk show and incidents that have happened on the show. So welcome to episode 1, The Beginning. Now, the beginning of Daybreak is interesting because I built it up in my head over a period of time and it eventually became what it is today. And even when I started the talk show, it still isn't what it is now. It's evolved over the course of almost five seasons. Back in episode 1, the first episode of the entire show, it looks nothing like what it does now. We didn't have any visuals, we didn't have any little game cards, we didn't have any, actual games. That came later, actually. We didn't have any games, it was just 2 guests, that was it. We didn't have a 45-minute show. It was supposed to be an hour earlier than it was, which is absolutely ridiculous, because I can barely get up as it is now to do the show. We didn't have a theme song like we do now. And even when we got the new theme song, I then changed it after the break. And we'll get into that in episode 14, what the break was. So Daybreak has been evolving for a very, very long time to what it is now. And it's not even done evolving yet. I keep coming up with new things every day, adding to the list of games, adding to new ideas like this one. This is a brand new idea I came up with the other day. But I thought, you know what? A lot of interesting things have happened on Daybreak before. A lot of things that no one's ever going to know because I don't explain it on Daybreak because 1, I don't have the time. 2, I just don't want to. But now I feel like, you know what? I think it could be funny. There could be some interesting stories. And you get to see what I experience behind the camera. And I think that's what the whole point of Daybreak Stories is. It's me just telling stories about Daybreak and you sort of seeing what I see. Eventually, I will do an actual behind-the-scenes video where you'll see me tape an actual show, and I'll have a camera just over there, and you get to see what I'm looking at. Well, not really what I'm looking at, but you get to see me looking at the camera with my whole lighting set up, with my audio, with my switches and stands and everything around me that you can't see. You can only see me sitting on something, and this is a stool, but you don't get to see anything around me. So you're gonna get to see a lot of things with this new sub-series. But yeah. So when I originally wanted to start Daybreak, it was more of an idea rather than an actual thing. I just thought, you know what? I have the school iPad that I get when I went to register for my high school, and I am super bored. Because this was, for those who don't know, this started, I think, at the end of, no, toward the beginning of May. It was the first episode was May 10th. Either that was the planned first episode or that was the actual first episode. I'll go over that in the next episode of Daybreak Stories. But the first episode was May 10th, and so it was towards the beginning of May, meaning we were in quarantine. We didn't have any school. School was canceled. Nothing was happening. And I was extremely bored. I didn't have anything to do. I didn't have anyone to talk to. I couldn't go anywhere. I couldn't meet with anyone. So let's have a mode of communication with people from my school or people I don't even know yet who I could be very good friends with. And what I came up with was Daybreak. Now, back then, I used to write everything on flashcards. Everything, all the ideas I had, song lyric ideas, show ideas. If I have a question after I've already pre-written questions, I would write it down on the flashcard and save for later. If I had a game idea, I'd write it down on the flashcards and put it on my desk so that I couldn't actually write it into the actual books. So I'm like, you know, I just had an idea. Let's have a talk show. And this is the original flashcard for the talk show. When I started the show, I had a few people in mind who I wanted to interview. I knew them all. I knew they'd be great guests, and I knew the viewer would love them. And the show isn't for the views, but the views do help spread it to other people. So I appreciate those who watch the shows. On Instagram, and on YouTube, and on Facebook if you watch it there as well. So thank you. Anyways, I had a couple people in mind. Those people were Grace Maroney, one of my my oldest friends. We got along really well back at middle school at Dover Sherborne. I know she goes into depth on all the things she talks about. She'd be a great guest. Number 2, Ben Gaynor. Ben Gaynor was another great friend of mine. He was actually a high schooler when I was creating this. I was not. Well, I was, but at the time when I knew him at my old town, I was still in middle school and he was in high school. And I had my brother in mind because I knew my brother had a lot of interesting characteristics about him and a lot of good talents that I think would be great to have a conversation about. When I started the show, I had found iMovie, and I'm like, you know what would be good? A commercial. Conan and Jimmy Fallon and Stephen Colbert all have commercials for their shows to advertise them to people. Put it on Instagram, have my followers look at it, and then they would be looking forward to watching the show. So that's what I did. I wrote a iMovie thing. I didn't have any guests yet, so I couldn't include any pictures of anyone. So I just wrote it on like Google Drawing, took like screenshots of it and put it into the iMovie. So actually, let's take a look at what the original theme song was. So that was the original theme song from season 1. And you see what I'm talking about with the screenshots of everything, just like episode 1, Grace Baroni, episode 2, this, episode 3, this. And I didn't have any pictures, I didn't have any experience when I was doing it. I just took pictures of myself at random points. And I just hoped that it worked. And I think it turned out okay for the first time I've ever doing things. Obviously, I've evolved over time. If you want to take a look at season 3 and season 4 commercials, you can go to the YouTube channel, which you're watching this on. And it's in the playlist, season 3, season 4, which are also in the playlist of Daybreak first edition. And I'll explain that when we get to the episode I Need a Break. Anyways, back to the story. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what the guests were going to say, didn't know what my questions were. So I thought just to do what other talk shows do, have cards in front of you to read them all the times in case you get lost or forget something, and just try and be as professional as I can be. So this is what I did. I created cards. This is an example of one of the Daybreak cards I have. Now, I have multiple of these in a row and everything. So, for example, I'm going to show you, this is what the back of a Daybreak card looks like. I'm going to give you an example from my episode with Owen Sadowski, which was episode 1 of Daybreak. And this is what that card looked like. It had the questions on it, it had the segment, and it had the name. So it says Owen Sadowski, segment 2, 10:15 to 10:30. And you can see that's different from so that's different from the original. The original card I said 9 to 9:30. And I was thinking over time, that's too early. People cannot get up in time for that, especially on a Sunday. It's kind of annoying. So I'm not going to do it at 9 to 9:30. So instead I thought, let's do 10 to 10:30. It's an hour later. It gives people an hour to wake up and everything. People are usually up by then anyways. So they're already up and they're ready to go. So I thought, that'd be a good time for the show to go. So I booked it for 10 to 10:30. That was the original timestamp, 10 to 10:30. So this is the original card. It said 10 to 10, 10:15 to 10:30. That was the second segment. The first segment was the other guests from probably 10:02 because of the opening monologue until 10:15. So that was what an original Daybreak card looked like. And eventually, my parents got mad at me because I used too much ink, and I couldn't. I had to stop doing that because I was killing the printer. So instead, I used a journal, and I called this the Daybreak Journal because it has every single interview that I've ever done all the way up until I think late season 3, if I'm correct, into season 4 because I just ran out of pages in here. So this was the original Daybreak Journal, and here is my plan for season 1. This was created after, in retrospect, of season 1 because it already completed. The cards are there. So I had to create this afterwards, and I will talk about why I have so many guests in episode 1 in the next story, which is not tomorrow. It's next Wednesday. So, for example, episode 1, season 1 premiere April 19th, 2020. So it wasn't May 10th, it was April 19th. So sorry about that. And in this, we actually did have games. I didn't have games originally when I thought of it, but I did think of it after the fact. So, the episode 1 was an hour long, and again, I'll explain that next time. We had Grace Maroney interview, Box of Lies with Grace, Benjamin Gaynor interview, Riley Kravinger interview, Is It True with my next guest, Owen Stasky interview. And that is the entirety of episode 1. Then I had episode 2, or 3 really, on April 26th with Connor Longo and Komisky, and then episode 4, Lily Bailey and Abby Keefe. So that was my entire plan for the original series of Daybreak. And I loved how it went. I thought it went amazing. But there was a couple issues with how it ran and how smoothly it went and what people said, and I had to take note of it. And so I had to invent new rules, new policies, new guest restrictions on what they can say and what they can't say. The way I chose to speak and act, my set and everything, I had to change a lot. It was really like a test drive to see how it would go. And I went into it blind. The first day on April 19th, logged onto Instagram. Here we go. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Daybreak. I'm your host, Nicholas Nasky. We have a great show today, 2 amazing guests and a great game. And I just went right into it blind. I didn't know what I was going to expect or what it was going to be like. And I think for the first season of something that I've never done before, I think it turned out pretty well. And the viewers really liked it as well. And I got great reviews on the first season there. I got great reviews on the first episode. And I was thrilled to see that it was a big morale boost. And so I went on to do more seasons. And right now we're in season 5. So thank you to all the viewers. But I'm not going to get too much into what happens after season 1 because that's another story. But continuing with this story, many people ask what my inspiration was for Daybreak. And I didn't really have one. I loved watching Conan and Jimmy Fallon and Stephen Colbert and James Corden. I just like watching late night. I like their interviews and things. I didn't actually watch them at the time. I just watched them on YouTube and after the fact. But I liked watching late night. I thought the interviews were interesting. I get to see what people think when they're not actually talking about what they do. Like Conan is good because he sometimes doesn't bring up the thing you're talking about. He can just go off on a completely random topic. And Jimmy Fallon does the same thing. Like all late night hosts, even if they might have Harrison Ford on and he has a new Star Wars movie coming out, they might not mention that for the first part of his interview. They might just go on a random tangent. For example, in Jimmy Fallon's interview with Harrison Ford, they went on a tangent while talking about Star Wars. They went on sort of a mixed tangent with the Star Wars topic on him winning an Academy Award. It was sort of a funny bit thing. And they went on a different sort of topic. And I'm like, you know what? I want to do something like that. I want to have a show where I can talk to people, but I can't get Harrison Ford. I just can't. I can't get Jimmy Fallon. I can't get Jim Gaffigan. I can't get Billie Eilish. I can't get any of these famous celebrities to come on the show because this is the secret that a lot of people don't know about talk shows. They're paid to go on. So they will pay you money to come on the show because it brings in NBC or TBS or CBS. They get money from viewers, and they have to have people that will bring in views, so then they pay the people money to come on. But I can't pay people money to come on the show. I just can't. I don't have the money. I don't have the funding. I don't have any funding. I want to do it for people because they want to come on the show and talk. So I went around on my Instagram, I looked at my followers, and I went to see who would like to actually just have a regular conversation with me, who just wanted to have a nice, civilized, fun conversation about anything we want to talk about. Now, the first episode of Daybreak was mostly about quarantine and COVID because that was the time we were in. But as we evolved, we started getting into more topics. With Abby Keefe, we talked about her music, same thing with Layla Bailey. With Conor and Comiskey, we did talk about COVID, and with Riley Croffinger, we talked about COVID. But with Ben Gaynor, we talked about his drawings and things, and with Owen Zanowski, we talked about his love for World War II and a bunch of other things. So it was sort of a mixed bag of guest interests, which is good because everyone got something out of it. And so back to what was my inspiration. My inspiration really was just regular talk shows, just with people I know. Because you, the viewer, can't relate to Harrison Ford. Because Harrison Ford is Harrison Ford. You can't just relate to him. But you can relate to me, and you can relate to Grace, and you can relate to Abby, and you can relate to Layla and all these other people because they're you. They're all you. They're just a regular high school student who has interests, like you. And that's why the show works. It's because you are in the seat. Not someone who you idolize, not someone who you devote your time to watching and loving in terms of movies and things. It's who you actually know. It's your friends. It might be your family. It might be someone that you know and can have a conversation with. So it's relatable, and that's what I like about the show. I explained that when I was doing a flipped interview with Riley, and that's also another story we'll be going over on the show. And the last thing I want to talk about for today's story is game ideas. Now, I didn't have any game ideas. I actually asked Grace, do you have any game ideas for me? I don't have any ideas. And she suggested Box of Lies by Jimmy Fallon. The issue is that it's really an in-person game because you have to have a box. You want that little surprise factor there. I didn't really handle it that well because I didn't really know what I was doing because I was brand new. So I had to come up with something, and that's what I came up with. I came up with Would You Rather. I didn't come up with it. A lot of people suggested things, and that's how I got the ideas. And it just sort of came together in the end, and I couldn't be more grateful for how it turned out. Well, that completes this story, ladies and gentlemen, but tune in next week for another. I'll see you next time on Daybreak Stories. Bye, everybody.